Sophia Jensen walked slowly along the Pine Ridge Trail, the cool autumn air swirling around her, carrying the earthy scent of pine and damp leaves. The golden hues of the fallen leaves painted the ground beneath her feet. But the beauty of the forest did little to ease the heaviness in her heart. It had been 3 months since her daughter Lily had died in a tragic accident. 3 months of numbness, of trying to move through life without truly living. Every corner of her world seemed to carry echoes of Lily, her laughter, her joy, the sound of her small feet running through the house. And now, Sophia was left with the silence. A silence so deafening that it seemed to vibrate through every part of her. Lily had been just 7 years old when she died. The memory of the accident still felt raw, like a wound that refused to heal. A wrong turn, a moment of distraction, and in an instant, the world had changed forever. Sophia had spent countless hours reliving that day in her mind, replaying every second, every movement, asking herself if there had been something she could have done to save her daughter. But there was nothing. There was only the overwhelming weight of loss, the feeling that something crucial had been ripped away from her life. In the weeks following Lily's death, Sophia had tried to stay occupied. She threw herself into work, kept busy with small tasks around the house, and spent hours sorting through Lily's things. But it was the walks along Pine Ridge Trail that offered her the most solace. The forest, with its towering trees and rustling leaves, was a place where she could be alone with her thoughts. It was a place where the world seemed far enough away for her to allow the tears to fall freely, to let the grief take over for just a little while. Yet, even in the peace of the forest, she couldn't escape the weight of her pain. Her daughter's absence was a constant, gnawing presence, like a shadow that followed her everywhere she went. As she walked that crisp autumn day, the sound of her footsteps crunching softly on the path, Sophia tried to clear her mind. She tried to push away the sorrow that always seemed to be just below the surface. But the memories of Lily's bright eyes, her infectious laughter, and the way she used to run ahead of Sophia on their walks came rushing back. Sophia stopped for a moment and leaned against a nearby tree, closing her eyes as the wind whispered through the branches. She let herself remember, for just a moment, the joy that Lily had brought into her life. As Sophia took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions within her, something unusual caught her attention. A faint sound, like the cry of a child, echoed through the trees. Her heart stopped. The sound was so faint, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. But it was unmistakable. It was the sound of a baby crying. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She turned her head, trying to locate the source of the cry. Her first instinct was to dismiss it. It couldn't be. No one would be out here with a baby. But the sound came again, louder this time, and it was unmistakable. Without thinking, Sophia's feet moved quickly along the path, following the sound as it grew clearer and more urgent. The woods were quiet around her, save for the soft rustling of the trees. But the crying continued, and Sophia quickened her pace, her heart racing in her chest. She hadn't expected to find anyone, but the cry seemed to be coming from just ahead, from the direction of a nearby cliff. As she rounded a bend in the trail, Sophia froze. Up ahead, she saw it, an empty baby stroller, careening toward the edge of the cliff. Her breath caught in her throat. The sight of the stroller rolling uncontrollably, heading straight for the drop, filled her with a sharp panic. The cry of the baby grew louder, more frantic, and without thinking, Sophia ran toward the stroller, desperate to reach it in time. She pushed herself harder, her legs burning, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But no matter how fast she ran, the stroller kept gaining speed. It was too late. There was no way she could reach it in time to stop it from falling. And then, just as the stroller seemed about to go over the edge, something incredible happened. From the trees on the far side of the path, a large figure emerged. A bear. Sophia's heart skipped a beat as the mother bear, with her massive form and sharp eyes, appeared out of nowhere, rushing toward the stroller with a grace that belied her size. The bear's movements were swift and fluid, and in a remarkable display of strength and tenderness, she leaped forward, catching the stroller with her paws just before it tumbled over the cliff's edge. Sophia stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, she could hardly believe her eyes. The bear, the mother bear, had saved the child. With a gentle yet firm motion, the bear pushed the stroller back from the cliff's edge, and in one smooth movement, she carefully pulled the baby from the stroller and cradled it in her arms. The crying had stopped, replaced by a soft whimper as the bear nuzzled the baby to her chest. As though comforting it, the sight of it was almost surreal. This powerful creature, usually feared for her strength and size, was now tenderly holding a child. Sophia stood frozen in awe, her body trembling with disbelief. She had expected to see danger, to witness the worst, but instead, she was witnessing a miracle. The mother bear, with her fierce protective instincts, had acted with such care and gentleness. Sophia could only stand there, watching as the bear rocked the baby softly in her embrace. Seemingly calm and unhurried, there was no aggression, no violence, just a quiet, nurturing strength. After a few moments, the bear gently placed the baby back in the stroller, making sure it was safe and secure before looking up at Sophia. The connection between them was palpable. The bear's eyes met Sophia's with a kind of knowing, as though the creature understood the deep, aching sorrow that Sophia carried within her. The mother bear gave one last gentle nudge to the stroller before she turned, slowly disappearing back into the woods, leaving Sophia and the baby behind. Sophia stood still, her mind racing, her body shaking from the overwhelming rush of emotions that had surged through her. She couldn't understand what had just happened, but she knew that something had changed inside her. The bear had acted instinctively, without hesitation, to protect the child, and in that moment, Sophia realized that she, too, could learn to be strong again. She could learn to care, to nurture, and to protect, even in the face of her own grief. The child, still in the stroller, was quiet now. Sophia approached cautiously, her hands trembling as she reached for the baby. The baby was unharmed, miraculously so, and as she cradled the child in her arms, she felt a deep sense of connection, not just to the child, but to the world around her. The woods had brought her to this moment, and somehow, in the most unexpected way, they had reminded her that even in the darkest of times, there was still beauty, still hope, still life to be protected. As Sophia looked out at the path the bear had taken, disappearing into the trees, she felt a sense of peace, a quiet understanding that, though life could be painful, there was still a way forward, still a way to heal. The forest had shown her that, just as it had shown the mother bear how to protect her cub. It had given her a glimpse of the strength and tenderness that could coexist in the wild. And perhaps, for the first time in months, Sophia felt the faint stirrings of healing within her heart. Sophia stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat as she watched the impossible unfold before her eyes. The sound of her racing heart was deafening in her ears, drowning out the rustling leaves and distant calls of birds. Her mind was reeling, unable to fully process what she was witnessing. Just moments ago, she had been certain that she would be witnessing a tragedy, a child falling to certain harm. But instead, there was something far more extraordinary occurring in front of her. The mother bear, a formidable and massive creature, appeared from the woods with the speed and grace of an animal far smaller and lighter than she was. Her fur was dark and glossy, and her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the area for any signs of danger. She moved with the kind of assuredness that only a mother with a deep, instinctive understanding of the world could possess. Sophia stood rooted to the spot, barely able to comprehend the scene unfolding before her. The baby's stroller had been seconds away from the cliff's edge, and Sophia had been too far away to reach it in time. But the bear had appeared out of nowhere, her instincts acting faster than any human could ever hope to react. With a powerful, yet calculated move, the mother bear lunged forward and grabbed the stroller just before it tipped over the edge of the cliff. Sophia's breath hitched as she saw the incredible strength of the bear in that moment, how she used the sheer power of her limbs to stop the stroller from falling, all while keeping a careful eye on her own two cubs, who were trailing behind her. Sophia's chest tightened as she realized that not only had the bear acted quickly to save the child, but she was also doing so with remarkable care, as if she knew exactly what was at stake. With a deftness that seemed impossible for such a large creature, the bear gently lifted the baby out of the stroller. There was no sign of aggression or panic. Instead, the bear handled the child as if she had done this 1,000 times before, with nothing but the tender, protective instincts of a mother. Sophia felt her knees weaken as she watched the bear cradling the baby in her arms. There was something so profoundly moving about the way the bear held the child. It was as though the bear, despite her wild and dangerous reputation, understood the importance of protecting this small, fragile life. The sight of the bear, with her two cubs nearby, holding the human child with such tenderness and care, struck Sophia like a wave of understanding. It was as though the bear was showing her, without words, that there was a bond between all mothers, whether human or animal, that transcended the boundaries of species. The baby, still shaken, let out a small whimper, but the mother bear responded with a soft nudge, her snout brushing gently against the child's face, almost as if she was soothing it. There was no hostility in the air, no signs of danger from the bear. Instead, Sophia saw nothing but a mother's devotion, an instinctive act of protection that went beyond the bear's own cubs to include this helpless human infant. The wildness of the creature and the softness of her actions were in perfect harmony. It was a remarkable, or inspiring sight, a reminder of the extraordinary, untamed force that existed in the animal kingdom, and yet the vulnerability and tenderness that were just as natural. As the bear continued to hold the baby, Sophia took a cautious step forward, instinctively trying to approach the scene. Her breath still came in shallow gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen anything like this before, but the bear didn't seem frightened, nor did she appear to be in any way threatened by Sophia's presence. Instead, the bear gave her a look, a knowing, steady gaze, as if acknowledging her without any need for words. Sophia stopped in her tracks, understanding that she was witnessing something far more profound than just a rescue. This was an act of pure maternal instinct, an undeniable force of nature. The bear was not acting out of calculation or fear. She was simply doing what mothers do, protecting her young, safeguarding life, and ensuring survival. And in that moment, the mother bear's protective nature extended to this human child, just as if the baby were her own. The baby, now safe in the bear's arms, seemed to calm down, its whimpering turning into soft coos as the bear continued to hold it gently. The two cubs, who had been trailing behind their mother, now moved closer, sniffing at the stroller and then at the baby. The interaction was peaceful, serene even. It was a scene that filled Sophia's heart with warmth, despite the overwhelming sadness that had dominated her life in recent months. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though the universe had paused, offering her a glimpse of something that was more than just survival or instinct. It was a reminder of the deep, unbreakable bond that all living beings shared, the desire to protect and nurture. even when life itself was wild and unpredictable. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a few minutes, the bear slowly set the baby back in the stroller. She did so with the utmost care, making sure the child was securely placed, ensuring that it was out of harm's way. As the bear stepped back, she gave one last look to Sophia, a silent acknowledgement of what had just transpired. There was no fanfare, no celebration, just the quiet understanding that the job had been done. The bear turned then, her massive form gracefully moving back toward the forest, with her two cubs following close behind her. Sophia remained still, rooted to the spot, her mind still struggling to process the extraordinary scene she had just witnessed. The forest had seemed so quiet, so still, and now it felt as though the air itself was charged with something almost magical. The bear had acted instinctively, doing something that no human could have done in such a calm, deliberate way, and in the process, she had saved a life that, in that moment, had felt as fragile as the autumn leaves around them. Sophia stood there for a long time, watching the bear and her cubs disappear into the forest. The baby in the stroller remained quiet, unharmed, and Sophia's hands trembled as she walked toward it, unsure of what to do next. She had been touched by something far greater than herself, something beyond human understanding, and she knew, in that moment, that what she had just witnessed was more than just an act of rescue. It was a lesson in the raw, unconditional nature of love and protection, a reminder that sometimes, the most extraordinary acts of kindness come from the most unexpected places. As the bear disappeared into the woods, leaving the baby behind, Sophia felt a deep sense of gratitude well up inside her, and for the first time in months, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for healing after all. Sophia carefully descended the rocky cliffside, her legs shaky and her breath coming in short, uneven bursts as she reached the spot where the stroller had almost gone over the edge. Her heart was still pounding from the shock, but as she approached the area, the sight before her stopped her in her tracks. There, lying gently in the strong arms of the mother bear, was the child she had feared would be lost. The baby was resting, its tiny body safely cradled by the bear, who sat calmly on the ground as if protecting something precious, something irreplaceable. Sophia's eyes locked onto the bear, and for a brief moment, the world around her seemed to vanish. The bear's gaze met hers, intelligent, wise, and filled with an undeniable tenderness. There was no malice in the bear's eyes, no sign of threat. Instead, there was a deep, knowing look, one that seemed to convey an understanding that surpassed words. It was as though the bear recognized the shared emotion that connected them both. The shared responsibility of motherhood, of protection, of love. In that moment, Sophia felt something stirring within her, something deep and profound, a recognition that surpassed the boundaries of species, a feeling of connection that was beyond her understanding. The bear didn't growl or show any signs of aggression. She simply held the child gently, her massive form contrasting with the delicate, fragile human infant she had rescued from the brink of disaster. The silence between the two mothers stretched on. Yet in that silence, Sophia understood. She saw in the bear's gaze a reflection of her own grief, her own love, and the shared instinct to protect the life of a child at all costs. It was as if the bear, in her quiet and steady way, was acknowledging the loss that Sophia had experienced, the ache that still haunted her, and offering her a piece of healing. The two mothers, though from different worlds, were connected by something timeless and universal. Sophia's mind flashed back to the early days of motherhood, to the warmth of Lily's tiny hands wrapped around her fingers, the laughter that filled their home, and the fierce protectiveness she had felt every moment of her daughter's life. And now, as she stood before the bear, she realized that the mother's love was not bound by the species of its origin. The bond between mother and child was an unbreakable thread, one that wove through the fabric of life itself. The bear's expression softened even further, and she gave one last, long look at Sophia, as if to say that she had done her part. There was no need for gratitude, no need for words. The connection was enough. Slowly, the bear stood up, carefully adjusting the baby in her arms as she began to turn away, her cubs trailing behind her. The image of the bear, strong, protective, and gentle, was one that Sophia would carry with her forever. As the bear and her cubs began to move toward the trees, Sophia felt something in her chest loosen, something she hadn't realized was still tightly bound. She had witnessed a miracle, something beyond explanation, and in doing so, something inside her had begun to heal. It wasn't the kind of healing that could be described in a simple, linear way. It was more like the deep, quiet growing of a new root in the earth, one that would eventually anchor her, even though it couldn't be seen right away. Sophia took a slow, steady step forward, her eyes never leaving the retreating form of the bear. The air was thick with the feeling of a shared, sacred moment between two mothers, two protectors, who had both felt the overwhelming, powerful need to preserve life, no matter the cost. Sophia felt a swell of gratitude, not only for the bear's extraordinary act but for the lesson she had unknowingly imparted. In the face of unimaginable odds, the bear had shown Sophia what it meant to be strong in the face of the unknown, to love with the ferocity of a mother's heart, and to never falter in the instinct to protect what was most precious. As the mother bear and her cubs disappeared into the forest, Sophia stood still, her heart full. The forest around her seemed to breathe with a quiet, calming energy, as if the trees themselves had witnessed this sacred exchange. The sun, low in the sky, cast a warm golden light over the scene, making the leaves shimmer in the fading light of the day. It felt as though everything had come full circle in a way that Sophia couldn't fully explain, but that she knew in her bones. The pain she had carried for months, the ache of losing Lily, had not disappeared, but it had shifted, had changed somehow. The rawness of her grief had softened, and in its place was something new, a quiet peace, a sense of understanding that she had been shown a different kind of strength. As she stood there, watching the forest slowly swallow the last traces of the bear and her cubs, Sophia felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the miracle of the baby being saved, but for the unexpected healing she had received in that shared moment of motherhood with the bear. The love she had for Lily was still there, still vibrant, still fierce, but it was no longer clouded by the bitterness of grief. Instead, it had been tempered by the wisdom of the wild, by the knowledge that motherhood, love, was something that transcended time, species, and even the harshest of circumstances. Sophia slowly walked back to where the stroller lay, now empty but still a reminder of what had almost been lost. She touched the fabric of the stroller gently, her fingers trembling as she let out a breath, the tension in her body slowly unwinding. The baby was safe, and she had witnessed something extraordinary, a moment that would forever change her understanding of life, of love, and of the infinite ways that protection and compassion could manifest in the world. In the days that followed, Sophia continued to walk the Pine Ridge Trail, as she had done so many times before, but now there was a quiet lightness in her step, a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. She had experienced something beyond comprehension, something that had shown her the depth of her own capacity for love and healing. And though Lily was gone, Sophia knew in her heart that the lessons she had learned from that miraculous encounter would stay with her forever, reminding her that there was always a way forward, no matter the darkness of the past. And as the seasons changed, bringing the world back to life in a riot of color and growth, so too did Sophia begin to bloom again. Sophia gently cradled the baby in her arms, her heart still racing from the extraordinary events that had unfolded just hours earlier. Emma, the child she had so miraculously found in the bear's embrace, was finally calm, her tiny fingers clutching the fabric of Sophia's jacket. The baby had been through so much, fearing the fall, the sudden shift in her world, but now she was safe. Nestled against Sophia's chest, there was something profound in the simple act of holding the child. Something healing in the quiet exchange of comfort between them. The forest, once filled with the echoes of Sophia's grief, now seemed to hum with a quiet peace. It wasn't long before the sounds of footsteps reached her ears, an anxious but hopeful sound. Sophia looked up, her breath catching in her throat as she saw Rebecca, the baby's mother, rushing toward her. Her eyes were filled with tears, her face a mixture of relief, worry, and disbelief. Sophia held Emma a little tighter, instinctively trying to protect the little girl, though she knew that her own role in the rescue was only a small part of the greater miracle that had taken place. Rebecca reached her, her hands trembling as she gently reached out for her child. The moment their eyes met, Rebecca's tears began to flow freely. She whispered Emma's name, her voice cracking with emotion as she took her daughter into her arms. For a moment, the world seemed to fade away. The two women, strangers only hours ago, stood together in a quiet understanding, sharing the weight of a mother's love and the relief of a child's safety. "Thank you," Rebecca sobbed, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you for saving her." She clutched Emma tightly, as if afraid to ever let her go. Sophia nodded, unable to find the words to express what she was feeling. The words didn't seem necessary. The bond between them, formed by a shared love for the same child, spoke louder than any words could. Sophia's own emotions were a swirl of relief, sadness, and something deeper that she couldn't quite name. She had saved Emma, but in some ways, Emma had saved her too. Holding the baby in her arms, witnessing the reunion between mother and child, Sophia felt something inside her shift. For so long, she had carried the weight of Lily's absence, the crushing grief that had isolated her from the world. But now, for the first time in months, Sophia felt a connection, a thread of humanity, of love, that bridged the gap between her pain and the world around her. In the days that followed, Sophia and Rebecca stayed in touch. At first, it was through simple messages of thanks and checking in on Emma, making sure she was adjusting to being home with her family. But as the weeks passed, their connection deepened. They began to meet for coffee, to talk about everything and nothing, to share stories about their lives before the events that had brought them together. Rebecca would tell Sophia about Emma's favorite toys, the way she loved to laugh when they went on walks, and the milestones she had reached in her first year of life. And Sophia would tell Rebecca about her life before the accident, about the joy she had known with Lily, and how she had spent the days since her daughter's death trying to find a way to live without her. They shared their grief, their hopes, their memories, and their dreams, and in each conversation, in each meeting, Sophia felt a small piece of her heart begin to heal. There was something about Rebecca's presence that soothed her, something about the way Rebecca spoke of Emma that reminded Sophia of the deep, unconditional love she had once felt for Lily. It was a love that transcended time, a love that never truly disappeared, no matter how much pain one had to endure. As the months passed, Sophia and Rebecca's friendship blossomed. They supported each other in ways that neither woman had expected. They shared laughter, and they shared tears. They helped each other navigate the complex emotions that came with loss and healing. Sophia found comfort in the way Rebecca didn't shy away from her pain but allowed it to be a part of their friendship, accepting it with empathy and grace. And Rebecca found solace in Sophia's strength, in the way she had embraced the miracle of Emma's rescue without hesitation. despite the heaviness she carried within her. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch of Sophia's house, sipping coffee and watching the golden light of the late afternoon cast long shadows over the yard, Rebecca spoke softly, as if testing the waters of a thought she had been holding for some time. "You know," Rebecca began, "I've been thinking a lot about what you did that day. What you witnessed with the bear, and how you saved Emma. It's such a beautiful thing to think about. How that bear protected her. How you protected her." She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "I think it's not just the act of saving her that matters. It's the fact that you saw something that I didn't even know existed, a connection. A kind of understanding between mothers. Even in the wild, even between different species. That's something beautiful." Sophia looked out at the horizon, where the trees met the sky, and let the words sink in. She had thought about the bear's act of protection many times since that day. The strength, the tenderness, the quiet way the mother bear had held Emma, as if her life mattered as much as her own cubs. And Sophia realized, in that moment, that Rebecca was right. It wasn't just about saving Emma. It was about recognizing the universal bond of motherhood, the depth of love that all mothers shared, no matter where they came from or who they were. And that recognition, that understanding, had been what had allowed Sophia to heal in ways she hadn't expected. "I think you're right," Sophia said softly, her voice carrying the weight of everything she had learned over the past few months. "I think it's about the connection between us all. And I think I've finally begun to understand that my love for Lily is still there. Still strong. It hasn't gone away. It's just changed." Rebecca nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's always there," she said, her voice gentle. "It's just sometimes you need someone to remind you that it's okay to feel both the pain and the love. And that you're not alone." Sophia smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet comfort of Rebecca's presence, Sophia realized that she wasn't alone anymore. The miracle of that day, the bond between herself and Rebecca, had shown her that even in the depths of her grief, there was room for healing, for connection, and for love. It wasn't the end of her journey, but it was a new beginning, a new chapter in a life that she thought she had lost. As they sat there together, watching the sunset and talking about their hopes for the future, Sophia felt something shift inside her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning how to live again. And in that, she found a quiet peace. The story of the mother bear, Emma, and Sophia became a tale that resonated far beyond the small forest where the rescue had taken place. It spread like wildfire, captivating people with its extraordinary display of compassion, courage, and the deep, unspoken connection between humans and the wild. The bear, whose actions had been driven solely by the instincts of a mother protecting a vulnerable life, was not only remembered for saving a child but became a symbol of the powerful bond that existed between species. Her gentle yet strong nature, the way she had acted swiftly and without hesitation, reflected a primal force of protection that transcended boundaries, uniting the human and animal worlds in a profound way. Scientists, fascinated by the mother bear's remarkable act, began to study her behavior more closely. They were eager to understand the instincts behind her protective actions, the way she had approached the situation with both strength and tenderness. Through their research, they discovered more about the complex behaviors of bears, their intelligence, and the depth of their emotional and social lives. The mother bear, once just another wild creature, became an emblem of the untamed world, a reminder of the intricate connections that all living beings shared. Regardless of how different they seemed on the surface, the bear's story became the centerpiece of a broader conservation campaign aimed at protecting the forests and the wildlife that called them home. The campaign, which sought to raise awareness about the importance of preserving natural habitats, drew attention to the need for sustainable living and the urgent necessity to protect the Earth's ecosystems. The tale of the bear's instinctual act of saving Emma was used as a powerful example of why it was crucial to safeguard the environments where such acts of compassion and survival could continue to unfold. The connection between the bear's protective nature and the conservation efforts that followed became a rallying cry for those passionate about wildlife preservation. As the campaign gained momentum, more and more people joined the cause, contributing to the protection of forest areas like Pine Ridge Trail and other wilderness spaces. Sophia, deeply moved by the ripple effect of the mother bear's actions, realized that the bear's story had ignited something within her. It had awakened a sense of purpose and a commitment to protecting the delicate balance between humans and nature. Inspired by the bear's instinctual wisdom and the deep, shared sense of motherhood that had united her with Rebecca, Sophia decided to take her passion a step further. She began writing a book, recounting the incredible story of the bear's heroic rescue and the deep connection between all living beings. The book wasn't just about the miraculous rescue, it was about the lessons that Sophia had learned along the way. It was about understanding the importance of empathy, compassion, and the quiet ways that animals and humans were interconnected. Sophia wrote with a sense of urgency and reverence, wanting to capture the essence of what she had experienced and the way it had transformed her. In her book, she described the moments when the bear had gently lifted Emma from the stroller. The look in the bear's eyes that seemed to communicate a silent understanding. And how the two mothers, one human, one animal, had shared an unspoken bond that transcended all differences. It was a story of healing, of rediscovering the shared humanity that existed even in the wild. The writing process was cathartic for Sophia, a way for her to come to terms with the grief that had lingered since the death of her daughter, Lily, writing about the connection between humans and animals, about the powerful acts of love that existed in nature, helped her heal in ways she hadn't expected. It allowed her to see beyond her pain, to realize that there was still hope, that there was still love in the world, both in the wild and in the human heart. As her book neared completion, Sophia felt that it wasn't just about telling a story, it was about creating change. She knew that the book had the potential to inspire others, to show them the beauty of nature and the importance of preserving it for future generations. But she also felt a deep need to take action, to do something more tangible with the lessons she had learned. That was when she decided to establish a charity fund, dedicated to supporting wildlife conservation and environmental protection. The fund, which she called The Bear's Heart, was designed to raise money for projects that protected endangered species, restored habitats, and helped communities develop sustainable ways of living in harmony with nature. It was a way for Sophia to honor the memory of her daughter, Lily, while also giving back to the world that had helped her heal. The charity focused on efforts to safeguard the habitats of animals like the mother bear and her cubs, ensuring that future generations would have the chance to witness acts of compassion and survival in the wild. Sophia's mission became about more than just the bear or the rescue. It was about preserving the delicate balance between human existence and the natural world, about fostering a deep respect for the creatures with whom we share the planet. As the charity grew, Sophia found herself surrounded by a community of like-minded individuals who were committed to the same cause. They worked together to fund projects, organize events, and raise awareness about the importance of wildlife conservation. The story of the bear and her courage had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, nature still held the power to inspire, to heal, and to transform. The bond between Sophia and Rebecca deepened over time. They continued to support one another, both personally and professionally, Rebecca helped Sophia organize charity events. And together, they spoke about the importance of conservation, using their shared experience to inspire others to take action. As time went on, the campaign to protect the forests and wildlife gained even more traction. The bear's story was told in schools, in documentaries, and in public campaigns, reaching people around the world. It had become a symbol of the quiet strength and compassion that existed in the natural world. A reminder that all living beings were connected, and that the love between a mother and her child knew no bounds. The charity had raised enough money to support several conservation projects, and the efforts had made a tangible impact on the preservation of critical wildlife habitats. Sophia had come full circle, from a place of deep loss to one of hope and action. The mother bear's act of heroism had sparked a wave of change that rippled outward, touching the lives of countless people, and inspiring a renewed commitment to the protection of nature. Sophia's life, and the lives of others who had been touched by her story, had become a testament to the healing power of nature. The bond between Emma, Rebecca, and Sophia, and the mother bear, had created a legacy of compassion, love, and understanding, a legacy that would continue to grow, nurturing a new generation of environmental stewards. Through their shared efforts, they had created a future where the connection between humans and the wild was no longer something abstract, but something real, something vital. The story of the bear, the child, and the two mothers had become more than just a tale, it had become a movement. A call to action that showed the world the power of connection, the strength of empathy, and the importance of protecting the earth for all the creatures who called it home.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.